Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, television, streaming, all sorts of good stuff. And today's a little bit different. Today's show is being pre-recorded, and the reason it is being pre-recorded is that, as you guys know, or some of you know, I am moving in 8 days. Ann and I bought our very first house a little over a month ago. It's been undergoing major renovations, and we are moving in 8 days. But from time to time, they need me out there to make some decisions about some things. So probably as you're watching this, I am out in Riverside, California, going over renovations of my house and stuff like that. So that's where I needed to be today. But I still wanted to make sure we had some fun here to talk about some of the topics and questions that you guys have been sending in. Some really good stuff for us to talk about. So let's not waste any time and get right to it, shall we? And we're going to start off today's special show with a question from Alan Dale, who writes, John, I think Agnes is an acronym which stands for like Advanced Guiding Neurological Electrical Systems. That's pretty creative. That's not bad. A bit like Jor-El's consciousness in Man of Steel, or the Speed Force projecting Barry's mom to talk to him. Your thoughts? Okay, so Agnes is of course, the character played by Catherine Hahn, who I adore Catherine Hahn. The character played by Catherine Hahn in WandaVision. Now, that's a different kind of idea. I mean, it's certainly something Tony Stark would have made up, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. The other more prominent theory out there is that Agnes is actually the Marvel character Agnes Harkins. Is that her last name? What is it? Hold on a second. I think it's Agnes Harkness, right? Agnes Harkness. Agnes Harkness, who was like literally an old time witch. As a matter of fact, she was around during the Salem witch trials and all that kind of stuff. One of the things some people point to is that because in the comics, at one point, Agnes kind of almost mentors Wanda a little bit, but also in the show, the first 2 episodes, we see her wearing the same brooch, which is not like, but not completely unlike a brooch that Agnes would wear in the comics. I actually don't think that's the case either. Now, look, I'm not going to be surprised if she turns out to be Agnes Harkness, but I don't think it is. I totally could be wrong. I'm not like willing to put $5 on it or anything, but I don't think it is either. I think those traits are just little winks and nods to people who know the comics, but I don't think they're actually going in that direction. So I have a feeling she is an agent of S.W.O.R.D. I think she is an agent of S.W.O.R.D. How and why that's the case and how she fits in, I still don't know. Listen, I've watched all 3 episodes. They haven't even aired the 3rd episode yet. I've seen the 3rd episode and I'm still not really sure how she fits into everything, but I like the way you're thinking, Alan. That's a creative way of thinking about it. All right, next up. Delayed Straw writes, do you think we'll ever see the likes of Marka Rangis, Nega Sadao, Ludo Crash, and Exarchun? These are all Sith Lords. Do you mean Marka Ragnos? I think you probably mean Marka Ragnos. I think these are all like big time legends Sith characters in the Star Wars universe. Anyway, Exarchun brought into canon. I love the old tales of the Jedi and Golden Age of the Sith comics. If they do, I suspect they will either be books or comics. I mean, listen, now that we have like 10 Star Wars shows coming, and that's only in the next couple of years, and we've got new movies coming. We got Taika Waititi's doing one, and Kevin Feige's doing one, and we got Patty Jenkins doing one, and we know there will be others. And that's just, again, all that's just in the next couple of years. You put on top of that this sudden rush of doing Star Wars content with the fact that they've already started to bring some legend stuff into canon with, I mean, canon doesn't mean much to Star Wars anymore. It used to mean something, doesn't mean much anymore, but like most prominent of which is Grand Admiral Thrawn. Thrawn was a Legends character. And then they brought him into Rebels, started giving him his own books. his own novels. The new Thrawn novels are actually pretty good. I'm not talking about the old Heir to the Empire novels, which are fantastic, but I'm talking about in the last couple of years, they put out a new trilogy of Thrawn books, and they're pretty good. So they've done that. So anything is possible. They've got a lot of content they're going to try to produce over the next 5, 6, 7 years. They're going to be looking to draw from characters, I believe. So these become possibilities. Would I put money on any of them actually being used? I mean, the former Jedi Exar Kun, maybe, who becomes big Sith Lord, maybe, but I wouldn't put any money on it. But I also, again, because of the big rush to do a lot of Star Wars content now, I also wouldn't bet against it. So we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for sending that in, Delayed. All right, next up, Delayed Straw also writes, someone on this show a few months back brought up an idea for Star Wars that I love. A series of books called Legends or something that is not canon, but full of alternate stories and what ifs. As books, a series, yeah, sure, why not? I'm not really down for that being made. Like, I don't want them wasting their resources doing a show like that or a movie like that. But books, why not? That could be fun. I mean, first, I'd like to see them kind of straighten out their house of putting out consistently good live action material. I mean, you got Mandalorian, great. But before that, we had Rise of Skywalker. So I'd like to see them get more consistent in putting their energy and attention in getting some really good live action stuff. And establishing this new era they're trying to do with High Republic before they start getting into what ifs. But yeah, in book format, why not? I wouldn't be against that. All right. Delayed Straw also writes, John, have you seen a film by Taika Waititi called Hunt for the Wilderpeople? I have. It's got, what's his name? Jurassic Park guy, Sam Neill. Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Yes, there are no special effects, but this is a fantastic film. It was made for only $2.5 million. And how good is Sam Neill? Sam Neill is great. But here's the most notable thing. Actually, give me a second here. The most notable thing about Hunt for the Wilderpeople is the kid who's in it. The kid, I'm trying to remember, it's Julian something. Hold on a second. Let me bring this up. The kid in it, so the kid in it was Sam Neill. Is Julian Dennison. I had to look him up recently. Julian Dennison is the kid who played Fire Fist in Daredevil 2. The kid who played Fire Fist in Daredevil 2. And I just remember this because we were recently talking about, what's his last name again? Julian Dennison. Because we were talking about where possibly could Deadpool, me and a buddy of mine were talking about where could Deadpool 3 go. And that's why Julian was fresh on my mind. But yeah, that's kind of where he was discovered. And he's great in it. And then at first in Deadpool 2, it was like a little bit annoying of a character, but then you just start to love the character. I love this kid. I hope to see him in more. But yeah, Hunter the Wilderpeople, that's, again, it's a Taika Waititi film that put him on the radar for a bunch of people. See, Taika Waititi, a lot of people, the first time they saw a Taika Waititi movie was probably Thor Ragnarok. But before that, it was Hunt for the Wilderpeople and What We Do in the Shadows. And they're two of his best movies. I mean, but that I love every single one of his movies. You got those, and you got Thor Ragnarok, which I love. And then we got Jojo Rabbit, which won him an Academy Award, for heaven's sakes. But yes, Julian Dennison is the thing that draws to mind most, because then he went on to do Deadpool. So there's that. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Delayed Straw. Next up, Delayed Straw also writes, John, here in my home state of New South Wales in Australia, we are now back to 0 cases of COVID. Unbelievable. I'm living in a place where we got thousands of people dying every day. So we are now back to 0 cases of COVID-19 after a small resurgence and back into lockdown. And I think the country, the only few cases are in quarantine. Why can't others be like us and New Zealand? Yeah, because New Zealand is kicking ass too. And there are a few other countries as well that are kicking ass. It might have something to do, and look, I don't like to get political on my show at all, but it might have something to do. I'm just guessing here. It might have something to do that with the fact that until recently, we had a leader out here who lied about the severity of it and downplayed and pretended it was nothing. And then a whole bunch of people believed him because he was the president of the United States. So people just believe him. Well, the president says no big deal. So it's no big deal. And now we've got over 400,000 dead Americans. So that might have something to do with it. I'm just spitballing here. Anyway, no, it is good to see, though, that there are parts of the world that have hammered this thing and like did what needed to be done and took it seriously and all that kind of stuff. And kudos to you. You guys are an example for the rest of the world in that regard, at any rate. All right. Thanks a lot for that, man. Willow writes, do you plan on doing another season of Best Movie, Worst Movie? It's been almost a year now since your last season. Yes, we do. And yes, we are. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this up here. I'll tell you. There's been a couple of reasons why things got delayed, because best movie, worst movie, for those of you who don't know, is a podcast we've done, and we only do like 4 to 7 episodes a season, and we've done 2 seasons of it, and it's great, but it's done by me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and my friend Cody Miller. Now, you guys, of course, know, well, if you see my movie, Cody actually appears on my movie, which is really great. But Cody, I'm just going to show you an image here of something of a public image. So this, I'm not revealing, this is a public image, but, Cody and his fabulous wife, who have come out and stayed with Ann and I, we love these guys. Cody has just had a baby. Him and his wife, Allie, who Ann and I just adore, they've just had a baby. We have not yet met this baby. Because they live in Indiana or out in Indianapolis. But between training and Olympic stuff and all that kind of stuff, not to mention they just had this baby. So they've been getting ready to have this baby for a while. They just had this baby. Both Rob and I have never felt like, nope, now's not the time to talk to Cody about getting Best Movie, Worst Movie back up and running again. I'll be honest with you, I haven't even had a conversation with Cody about it. You know, Rob and I had a chat and it's like, you know what? Let's not even bring it up with him. He's got enough things on his plate. And we also, Rob and I aren't interested in doing it until Cody's ready to do more. And once he is, then we will move forward and probably do another season. But, you know, it might be after the summer. It might have to wait till after the Summer Olympics. So, but hey, it's a podcast we love doing, and we will get it back around to doing it again. We just want to wait till it's the right time for that. We can actually sit down, talk to Cody and say, hey, when do you think you might be ready to do more of these? Because as of right now, we haven't even brought it up with them because he's obviously got a lot of stuff on his hands right now. Anyway, but thank you for asking, Willow. It means a lot to me that you still think about that podcast. It is one we've had a lot of fun doing, and we do look forward to getting back and doing it again. All right. Thanks a lot for that. Okay. Next up. We got Delayed Straw again, who writes, movies are indeed nothing like the comics. Aquaman is nothing like the Throne of Atlantis story arc. In the film, Orm is a straight-up dick, while in the comic, he only attacks the surface because his hand is forced. Have you read this? It's my favorite. Yeah, that was in the New 52. It's actually, that whole run was really the first dedicated Aquaman run that I actually sat down and read. Because like a lot of people, I had always considered Aquaman to be something of a joke, right? And then way back in the day, they pulled this thing where they turned him into a bit of a grungy badass, where for a while he had the long hair and the long beard and he lost one of his hands and he now had like this iron spike hook instead of one of his hands. So they started making a little harder core. Anyway, then when New 52 came out, they started this new Aquaman story, and a bunch of people told me I should check it out, and I did, and I really like. So between that and the Aquaman portrayal in Injustice: Gods Among Us is pretty badass, and that's when I started again. So yes, I did read that, and yeah, that was again. But then again, you know, Aquaman the movie was not meant to be like a Throne of Atlantis version. There were elements from the comics. This is what a lot of the comic book movies do. They take elements from the comic source material it comes from and then adapt that into a larger movie. So there's definitely not a lot of similarities between those. You're right about that, Delayed. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, you've said for months that Disney Plus survived for a year with only one marquee show, Mandalorian. This is false. Really? Muppets Now. Oh God, no. Muppets Now is not a premium piece of content. That Muppets Now is not a premium piece of content that would appeal to the masses. I love the Muppets. But I don't think Muppets Now was considered a Mandalorian or a Watchmen or a Lovecraft Country or a, whatever else kind of level of premium content. I don't think it's on that level, but I do adore the Muppets. Now, my second most anticipated Disney Plus series debuted on July 7th, July, right? 31st of 2020. Today, it's announced that the classic Muppet Show is coming on February 19th. Are you excited? Yes, I am. We talked about this on the show the other day. For those of you who missed it, they announced that Disney Plus is bringing all five of the original season, all five original seasons of the original Muppet Show. Seasons 4 and 5 have never been available on home video before. That original show, I mean, again, I was just a child and a kid watching these reruns and everything, but I used to love that show. The Muppet Show was amazing, and I am very excited about that coming back. So yes, that is very, very high on my radar, the fact that they're bringing the original show back. All right, next up. Useless Nobody writes, did you see that Ubisoft's massive studio is making an open world Star Wars game? Yes. They're using the Snowdrop engine, so it'll most likely be a third-person shooter. You know what? I was talking about this with somebody online. I don't think it will be, but it very well may be. Anyway, most likely be a first-person shooter. A bounty hunter game would make sense for this studio. What are your thoughts? Here's the just bottom line reality and truth. I don't get terribly excited about Star Wars games. I don't get terribly excited about Star Wars games. They certainly get my attention, but the reality is, over the years, there have been a lot of very bad Star Wars games. Like, granted, the recent Fallen Order was good. The recent Fallen Order was good, but there have been so many bad games. I think part of it is because there's just been this thought that, hell, it's got the Star Wars name on it. That's good enough. That's all we have to do. We don't have to do much else. The last time I really enjoyed a Star Wars game before that was Old Republic, and that came out a long time ago. So am I saying that means that any new game coming out is going to be bad? No, not at all. It's just that I've been burned by a lot of Star Wars games, and there have been some great ones. Don't get me wrong. There have been some great ones. Actually, two of my all-time favorite games, and this is going way back, two of my all-time favorite games are the original X-Wing and TIE Fighter, which is why I was really excited about Star Wars Squadrons, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't love Star Wars Squadrons, but this big open world game, listen, every time there's a new game, it comes with great, rich possibilities. So I'm going to keep my eye on it. I just won't let myself get terribly excited about it anymore, because while there have been a couple of really good ones, there's also been a lot of bad ones. And I'm going to wait till I start hearing some reviews, but I'll keep my eye on it. Useless Nobody. I will keep my eye on it. All right, next up, Jesse writes, 1 of 3. Okay, John, go with me here. You pointed out in the Spider-Man set photos, there are posters for missing children. After I rewatched the WandaVision trailer, I noticed that at Halloween time, there are kids walking the streets. So, if the people in WandaVision are real people trapped in this fake reality, are these real kids that have been taken from their families to act in Wanda's fantasy world? That seems like a bit of a stretch. Since the two projects are connected, do you think these could be the missing poster kids? No. And if Wanda actually is in control of what's going on, I don't see how she can be seen as a hero again. That's a lot of kidnapping, John. Well, I mean, listen, there's a whole lot of assumptions. You're making a lot of assumptions. Like, you're starting with an assumption and then building another assumption on top of that first assumption, and then taking the outcome of those two combined assumptions and making a third assumption. So that's a lot of assuming there. Number 1, no. I do not think there's any connection between the missing children in the posters we saw from the Spider-Man 3 set photos and the kids we see on the street in WandaVision. I don't think there's any connection there at all. if anything else, because here's the thing. And this is, again, one of the assumptions, if everybody in this world, WandaVision takes place, and what's it called? Westlake or whatever the town's name is. If these are all real people, which I'm not sure they are, but if they're all real people, well, then why in the Spider-Man set photo with that billboard of all the missing people, is it just kids and not also adults that are missing? Right? Because if these were all people being taken, then you would think in that Spider-Man set visit, we would see children and adults, like missing people. So no, I really don't think. Now listen, we have seen Kevin Feige pull some crazy stuff. So I'm not going to sit here and bet $100 with you that that's not the case. Anything's possible. Anything's possible. I'm just saying I will legitimately be surprised if that was the case. I don't see any reason right now to believe that. So, but I like the fact that you're thinking outside the box, Jesse. You're trying to connect these dots. Also, don't forget that we've got almost a year, not quite, but almost a year between when WandaVision comes out and when Spider-Man 3 comes out. So it just seems like it's a little bit of reversed order. So I would guess no, but again, I wouldn't write anything off. I wouldn't write anything off just completely out of hand, if you know what I'm saying. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, even if you don't care for the show, I recommend watching season 2 premiere of Batwoman. We were talking about that today, just for the spectacle of the whole crew desperately trying to pretend that they have any idea of what they're doing after losing their lead star. You know, it's fine. I still have this open from this morning's show. So for those of you who don't know exactly what it is Ryan is talking about, Batwoman season 2 had its premiere. Terrible numbers. Like they lost 70 to 80%. The season 2 premiere was down 70 to 80% of the viewership that the season 1 premiere had. Not good. Not good at all. And the kind of attitude I took towards that was, what did you expect? Because not only did you lose your lead actress, Ruby Rose was the lead actress in season 1, playing Batwoman, but the character she played, they've also got rid of the character. And so instead of just going out and getting an actress to take over the role for Ruby Rose, they said, oh, Ruby Rose is gone. Okay, the character she was playing is also gone. Now a brand new actress will come in to play a brand new character who will put on the Batwoman costume and call herself Batwoman. It's going to be a totally new character doing it. And it's like, wait, I remember the first day they announced that that was going to be their strategy. I thought it was very odd because now not only you're asking your audience that stuck around to watch Batwoman, and there's not a ton of people watching Batwoman, but not only are you asking your audience to hang in there as you swap out main actresses, but now you're also telling them, oh yeah, the main character of the show that you watch this show for, we're getting rid of that character too. That to me made no bloody sense at all. No bloody sense at all. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the numbers were like 1.8 million. Yes, here it is. The season 1 premiere had 1.8 million viewers, whereas the season 2 premiere had 663,000 people. That's like, it dropped by 2/3. That's a major drop. A major drop. It's crazy. But again, my whole attitude is, what did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen? Again, I understand Ruby Rose was a problem, or Ruby Rose had a problem with you. They're saying it was a mutual breakup. I doubt it. It hardly ever is. But for whatever reason, you and Ruby Rose continuing to work together wasn't going to happen. Okay, it happens. Maybe it was outside of your control. Then just recast the role. You keep the main character that your audience has already become attached to and likes. I never understood their logic. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. And yeah, like to quote Perry White, in other words, really Batwoman numbers dropped like a rock in water. In other news, water wet. I mean, I don't know what else they were expecting. Anyway, thanks for that, Ryan. All right, next up, Ken Domick writes, hey there again, John. So, Did you see that the NHL is reorganizing their divisions? We talked about that the other day. It's reorganizing their divisions for this one year. I'm here enjoying some amazing food in Barrie. I love Barrie, actually. I've been up to Barrie a number of times. I had a friend of mine live in Barrie. Actually, back in my band playing days, a bass player I used to work with and play around with, he lived in Barrie. We would drive up there and play up there sometimes. Anyway, love Barrie. Amazing food in Barrie. Happy that our Maple Leafs might finally become the champion of Canada. Any new foods you would recommend us? I don't know how I'd recommend new foods. No, I have no idea about any new foods. Listen, I am a lifelong born and bred, bleed blue and white Toronto Maple Leaf fan. I have been my whole life. I don't talk about the Leafs very much on this show because hardly any of my viewers watch hockey. So I don't talk about all that much. The thing about the Maple Leafs, and some of you have heard me say this, I don't want to hear about the crying of the Chicago Cub fans. I don't want to hear about the crying of the Cleveland Brown fans. I don't want to hear any of the crying because my team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, have sucked pretty much in my entire life. I think there's only been about 5 years in my lifetime that they haven't legitimately sucked. And they have never, while I have drawn breath on this earth, ever been to the Stanley Cup Finals. Forget winning the Stanley Cup. In my lifetime, they've never even been to the Stanley Cup as long as I've been alive. It is rough being a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. And I do not believe for a second that they're about to win anything. But oh my God, the day they win anything, Ken, will be a very, very happy day. All right, next up. Playmaker writes, "Hey, John, I'm confused on the whole AIM/Hydra connection being mentioned in WandaVision. In the MCU, wasn't AIM introduced in Iron Man 3 as Aldrich, you're right about this, but there's an asterisk, as Aldrich Killian's think tank/terrorist organization. I didn't think they were connected to Hydra at all." Well, see, here's the thing. In the MCU, in Iron Man 3, the main villain, Killian, he founds AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics. AIM, A-I-M. Now, in the comic books, though, AIM is an organization that was founded and created by Strucker, who, of course, was in Age of Ultron, and he was the one who conducted the experiments to turn Quicksilver and Wanda into what they are. And, of course, in that episode of WandaVision, they mentioned the Strucker Watch, right? And then we saw the Beekeeper show up and all that kind of stuff. Now, so that's why you keep hearing the Hydra connection, because Strucker was, of course, of Hydra. In the comics, he founded AIM and the Beekeepers, as they called them. But yes, in the on-screen world, we already have AIM. And you know what? When I first watched WandaVision and I thought about AIM, I had totally forgotten it because I didn't hate Iron Man 3. I don't hate Iron Man 3. But it's clearly in the bottom 3 or 4 of the least good Marvel films. Let's say that. It's in the bottom 3 or 4. So I haven't watched it again in a number of years, but I had totally forgotten that the organization that developed Extremis, that he called it AIM. I had totally forgotten about that. So if it already exists in the MCU, maybe they're doing that, or maybe they're just kind of ignoring that and talking about that it really had its origins with Strucker, like they did in the comics. Whether they do or don't, I don't know why. But when you hear people talking about the comic connection, the connection to Hydra, and the connection to Strucker, that's where that's coming from, is that it's from the comics. So whether they're going to integrate any of that stuff with the existing stuff, who knows? We'll have to see. There's a lot of, by the way, AIM might have nothing to do with it at all. So just because the guy was wearing a Beekeeper suit doesn't really mean anything. And not to mention the Beekeeper suit had a sword logo on his back. So it may have had nothing to do with AIM whatsoever. Anyway, good observation, Playmaker. All right, next up. Chris Cutrer writes, "Hey, John. With Godzilla vs. Kong now being released on March 26th, a trailer must be imminent." Yeah, probably is. My question is, can you recall a blockbuster of this magnitude having no full trailer, much less any type of teaser, this close to release? Eagle Gang, Karate Forever. I mean, the one that comes to mind is a blockbuster in our minds now, but it wasn't at the time. The first John Wick movie. The first John Wick movie didn't drop its first trailer until 1 month before the movie came out. Now, of course, at the time, it feels weird to think about it like this now. At the time, John Wick just looked like the most recent throwaway Keanu Reeves. Remember when he had a career? The most recent kind of throwaway Keanu Reeves movie. And I kind of think Lionsgate might have thought that's what it was going to turn out to be. But it struck a nerve with people and everybody loved it. And now we've got 3 John Wick films and they're talking about shooting 4 and 5 this year, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I expect to see I can't think of an example of a big marquee blockbuster style film like Godzilla versus Kong. But remember, it's not getting a traditional release either, right? It's going to HBO Max. So I'm not really sure how that affects when they begin their marketing push. But also keep this in mind. While they did just move it to March, up till just a few days ago, it was going to come out 2 months after. Remember, it wasn't coming out till May, right? So it's now January, February, March, April, May. I mean, it's only 2 months away now, but just a few days ago, it was still a full 4 months away. So yes, now that it is 2 months away, I'll be surprised if by the end of January, we don't get a trailer. I suspect, again, I have no insider information, just to be clear, but I suspect we'll probably get a trailer before the end of next week. Because yeah, it's a big marquee film and it's coming out pretty soon. So let's see what happens with that, Chris. All right. Thanks for sending that in, man. Next up, Sin Vendetta writes, John, yesterday on your companion video, you said that your new house that you moved into, that I'm going to move into. I haven't moved into it yet. As you can see, I'm still here in my current place. You said, where were we again? Let me try this again. John, yesterday on your companion video, you said that your new house that you moved into was in Riverside, California. Yes. As a person who has lived in Riverside since 1996, I'd like to personally welcome you and Anne and hope you both enjoy living in this great city. Well, here's the thing. Anne actually grew up in that whole area. Like Anne grew up in Corona and Riverside, and that's where her family has lived. Her whole life has lived there. And her mom and her brother, my brother-in-law, Ray, who does all the thumbnails and everything for the John Campea Show, they still live out there. We're only going to be living like about a 10-minute drive from her family now, which is kind of part of the reason why we picked that area. Mostly, though, is because it's way less expensive than trying to live in LA. The house that we bought in Riverside, we never could have afforded in LA. I mean, it just came. We tried for a year and a half to try to find a place, but to get the house we really wanted was going to cost us like $875,000, $950,000. And I know it's hard to believe when looking at me, but I don't happen to have $875,000 to $950,000 laying around. I just don't have that. What? I know, right? You look at me, all you think is just glorious success and wealth from whatever I do. Not the case, apparently. Couldn't afford to live here. I mean, unless we wanted to live in like a house we don't want to live in for the type of money we would have to pay for it. You know what I mean? So we just finally decided, now that Ann and I both work at home, we decided that we could move our search area out. And so we looked out in Riverside. It's like less than an hour away. And we're still close enough to LA, but we get the house that we want and we're really excited, and boom. And, again, because Anne's family's out there, we would spend like at least 2 weekends every month out there anyway. I've gone to, not during the pandemic, but we've gone to a lot of movies at the Tyler Galleria, the AMC Tyler Galleria. Love it out there. Very excited about moving. And I'm out there right now as we speak, because as this video is being streamed, I'm actually out there going over the renovations being done in my house. So there we go. Anyway, thank you for the welcome, Sin Vendetta. I appreciate that, dude. All right, next up. Sin Vendetta also writes, also, John, I've been very interested in purchasing your documentary, movie trailer, A Love Story. Thank you so much. I'll plug it here in a second now that you've given me the opening, which I know is on Vimeo and Amazon. However, I usually buy all my content on my Xbox Movies TV app. Any chance it might go there in the future? Probably not. I don't have any plans to expand it right now. But again, plug. Yes, I made a movie. It's called Movie Trailers, A Love Story. This is the full poster here. So I'll bring it up. Movie Trailers, A Love Story, and it is available. We spent a good year working on it. It is available now wherever you live, whatever country you're in. It's a documentary about the history of movie trailers, the development of movie trailers, the problems with movie trailers, the significant historical points and evolutionary points with movie trailers, the importance of movie trailers today, all that kind of stuff. I have a great lineup of people in it, and you can get it now today, whichever country you live in, anywhere in the world, by simply going to www.vimeo.com/on-demand/movie trailer. But if you happen to live in the US or the UK, you also have the option of watching it on Amazon. Simply go to Amazon and search for Movie Trailers, A Love Story, and you should be able to find it, no problem. And and it's great. Thank you to all of you guys who've already checked it out. It has been an incredible ride, and thank you to everybody who has made the movie a success and checked it out and watched it. So thank you for that, and thank you, Sin Vendetta, for asking about. But no, there are certain hurdles you got to go over with every platform you want to put it on, and every platform has its own set of royalties that they keep. Like cuts of the movie they keep anyway. So I did a lot of thinking about it. I even had two small distributors actually offer to distribute the film, but it was just going to cost way too much. They were going to keep way too much. So I wrestled for like 6 months about what do I do with this movie once it's done. And I just really decided that the simplest, easiest, and most cost-effective thing for me to do was to put it on Amazon and to put it on Vimeo. And it's worked out great for me. So I really appreciate you wanting to check it out. But unfortunately, no, I won't be putting it on the Xbox platform. Unless, of course, you can get Amazon through that, I suppose. So anyway, there's that. But thank you for considering getting my movie, man. I hope that if you do, that you enjoy it. Thanks a lot for sharing that, man. And for giving me an excuse to plug my movie. Appreciate that very much. Okay, next up. Giovanni, the movie canon, writes, what is your advice on using a song for the intros of one's YouTube channel? I've been looking to pay for licensing for one song to use for the intro of each of my videos, but the rules are confusing. Did you pay one license to license your intro song of the John Campea Show? Yes. I couldn't even tell you right now. I couldn't tell. Where did I get it? Did I get it at Pond 5? I might have got it at Pond 5. But yes, I found a piece of music that I liked on a royalty-free music service. And basically the way that works is you pay a licensing fee and you get the license to use that song for particular use. You have to read through the license agreement. But yeah, I paid a one-time licensing fee for my song. The song doesn't belong to me. I've been written over the years on 3 or 4 occasions in the last 3 years of somebody saying, John, I was watching this WWE video and they were playing your intro music. Well, then WWE, for a particular video they were making, they probably came across the same piece of licensable music and paid the license for it. I didn't buy the exclusive right to the music. And maybe someday I will, but I'm not big enough. Let's be honest here. I'm not big enough to have to worry about having exclusive opening music. I license it. So yeah, there are a lot of places. Seriously, the best thing to do is just look for royalty-free license music online. You should find a lot of different services. And if you have any questions, a lot of them should have customer support that you should be able to reach out to, and just especially their sales teams. Like, some places don't have great customer support, but they'll answer your questions for sales immediately. Reach out to them, ask for some clarification. Each one will be different, but that's what I recommend. Anyway, good luck to you, sir. I hope you find what you're looking for. All right, next up. Chris Hobgood writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John. I noticed a sale on the digital movie service Vudu. All the Pirates of the Caribbean films for around $20. Really? All of them for $20. My question is, do you think this sale only exists because they are trying to compete with Disney Plus? Also, do you think services like Vudu will be able to stay around in the age of streaming? It's a good question. As far as the Pirates of the Caribbean thing, I don't think it has anything to do with that. Listen, long before Disney Plus ever existed, every once in a while, different packages go on sale. Like, hey, Get the 2 Iron Eagle movies for like half price. Buy the Star Wars things for whatever price. Buy the Dirty Harry movies for whatever price. I mean, so that's been around for a long time. So just because there happens to be a sale on the Pirates movies right now, and that's not a bad deal, but just because there's a sale on the Pirates movies right now, I don't think that has anything to do with Disney Plus or anything. Now, the other question is the more interesting one. What is going to happen to places like Vudu, Fandango Now? I think that's what it's called, Fandango Now. Fandango's got a streaming service. A bunch of people have streaming services where you could buy content. You can buy individual episodes, the Apple Play Store and things like that. I get mine from the Google Play Store. My entire movie library is on the Google Play Store. So I can access it anywhere, anytime, on any device. The question becomes, what will happen to services like Vudu? Because what we know is that at some point, Disney is making all this new content, not so people can rent it on some other service. The long game for Disney is they're making this content. So if you want to watch it digitally at home, you got to get Disney Plus. Amazon isn't making a new Lord of the Rings show so people can go and rent it on Vudu later. They want it the long term. They want it so that if you want to watch the new Lord of the Rings show, you got to get Amazon Prime. And I do think that's where they're all heading towards. They're not going to just jump there overnight. So not in the next year or 2 years, maybe not even in the next 3, but the long-term goal of these things is, even if the theatrical experience is still around, like Disney's going to put out movies in theaters, but then when it comes time to be on Disney Plus, or they originate on Disney Plus, they want it to be exclusive content. And they're going to move that way slowly, but I do believe that's the way they're going. And what that means is Vudu is going to have to create its own original content, or the creators of the content are going to stop licensing their content to Vudu. So it creates a little bit of a problem. And so I don't know that I like the long-term prospects for a company like Vudu. Now, I could be wrong, but yeah, right now it's a great option because somebody's like, well, I really want to watch, Wonder Woman 84, but I don't want to get HBO Max. So I'll rent it for $6 on Vudu when it's available on Vudu. I'll rent it for $6. Eventually, HBO Max doesn't want you to rent it for $6 somewhere else. They want you to have HBO Max. And so, again, yeah, I don't think the long-term prospects for a company like Vudu are very good. But again, the time will tell. There's a lot of other factors to consider, but that's kind of my general first thoughts on that. Anyway, good question, Chris. Thanks for writing that in. All right, next up. Greg Scott Bailey writes, 1 of 3. Hey, gang. So after watching the first 2 episodes of WandaVision, now twice, I decided over the weekend to watch Age of Ultron, Civil War, and Infinity War, now with the thought of watching the Wanda and Vision scenes a little closer. That's actually a really good thing to do. Not saying I found any Easter eggs or anything, but it was nice to get a fresh character perspective by doing this. WandaVision also seems to have re-energized me for the MCU. Well, I mean, the MCU's been dormant for about a year, so we needed something to re-energize us. Has re-energized me for the MCU. I'm not saying it was a bad burnout, but after Endgame, I had to take a bit of a break and soak in everything for the past 23 movies. Now I honestly feel fresh and revitalized and ready to take on the next big chunks of what the MCU has to offer, including Disney Plus content. I feel I need a In Feige I Trust t-shirt. Somebody's got to make that t-shirt. Yeah, look. What I mentioned this on the John Campea Show earlier today, but I think it was The Atlantic which is one of the trade outlets. I was reading an article on The Atlantic that had a beautiful title for an article, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it was the tragedy of WandaVision is a heartbreaking tragedy about a woman desperately trying to deal with her grief. Think about that. That ultimately, you want to know what WandaVision is about? It's about a woman who is tragically trying to deal with her unbearable grief. The whole thing is Wanda dealing with the fact that she's lost everything. You took everything from me. I don't even know who you are. You will. I still get shivers when I think about that moment in Endgame. But it is ultimately a show about a woman who's tragically trying to deal with her unbearable grief. She lost her family. Then she lost her brother. Then she fell in love and then lost him. Lost Vision. Actually lost him twice. Lost him twice in Endgame, or in Infinity War, I should say. Lost him twice in Infinity War. And it's a powerful thing. And I really like that idea of you to go back and kind of retrace the steps of the WandaVision story. And it kind of, now that I think about it, probably just makes it even more tragic. But yes, after Endgame, Endgame was the climax. It was the crescendo, right? And there was a MCU hangover after that, because we had 10 years and 20 plus films, all building up to it. And then the big sploosh climax happens. And what happens after the climax? You roll over and go to sleep. I mean, and that's kind of what it was. And everybody denied it at first. Everybody said, no, Endgame was awesome, and I can't wait. But really, very soon after that, you felt the temperature come down a little bit, which is only natural. And we do really need something to re-kickstart that. Is WandaVision the property that's going to kickstart it for a lot of people? I don't know. Like, I'm enjoying it, but it's not like, it hasn't brought me back to pre-Endgame levels of hype in the MCU yet. Maybe it will as we get a little bit further into it. That's a possibility. But for right now, I don't think it's at those levels just yet. But I love what you were doing there, Greg. Going back and retracing that relationship through the previous movies. Excellent, excellent idea. And yes, in Feige, I trust is probably a t-shirt that needs to get made. All right. Thanks a lot for saying that in, man. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, how jealous are you that Harloff is best friends with Katie Sackhoff? I'm kidding. Thank you for the content and dedication to your craft. Keep calm, stay safe, and bring on the filthy. And of course, Harloff is in my documentary, Movie Trailers, A Love Story. Go and check it out. Yeah, he's had a relationship with Katie Sackhoff for a long, long time. You know what's funny that you mentioned that? Just before I started recording this, I had a memory thing pop up on Facebook reminding me of something that happened. It was, get this, let me see if I can find it here again. It was 12 years ago. Let me see if I can pull it up. That I had posted, I mean, this specific event wasn't 12 years ago, but it was like 12 years and a few months. But this picture came up. This is a picture you, of course, will recognize Erin Cummings in the picture. She's the redhead in there. That's Erin Cummings. The girl in the brown dress, that's the wonderful America Olivo. And the girl in the black, that is a fellow Canadian kid, Julia Voth. Of course, Erin and Julia later would appear in my movie, The Anniversary. But they were at Comic-Con promoting... I got sidetracked here. But now they were at Comic-Con. The three of them were at Comic-Con promoting their new movie at the time, Bitch Slap, which is a lot of fun. If you haven't watched Bitch Slap, you should go check it out. But this is the first day we met. They came up and introduced themselves to me at our Masters of the Web panel. And it was me and a couple other guys who were part of the Masters of the Web. And at that time, we were throwing these Masters of the Web parties and at Comic-Con. So we invited them to come, and they come. And this is the very first day. I had just met Erin Cummings earlier that day. And here Erin and I are 12 years later, still friends, still doing stuff together. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, so it's kind of funny that this all comes up because this was a picture that showed up in my memories thing on Facebook. So yeah, anyway, I'm kidding. Thank you for the content, dedication to your craft. Keep calm, stay safe, and bring on the filthy. Thank you so much, Sam. I really do appreciate that. That is great. And yeah, it is great that Christian knows Katie Sackhoff. I've always been, of course, I was jealous of that because when I first met Christian and he had told me about his friendship with Katie Sackhoff, I was jealous, of course, at the time, not because of Mandalorian. I was jealous because of Battlestar Galactica. She was Starbuck, so there was that. All right, next up. Aaron Schrader writes, I have a theory that Wanda has gained the powers of all 6 Infinity Stones Let me keep reading, but that seems unlikely. Has gained the powers of all 6 Infinity Stones. She's controlling minds, which she always could, but now she's reversing time and altering reality. She's kind of already has power. Maybe gave Vision a soul teleportation next. Well, at least in comics, like Wanda can basically alter reality. That's kind of what she can do. So if she doesn't need to have the power of the Infinity Stones to create a reality for herself. And by the way, let's be clear. There are still theories out there that this whole world she's living right now isn't by her own making. There are still theories out there, which could be true, that she's actually kind of being held there. Right? Because in other words, who's doing this to you, Wanda? Who's holding you, Wanda? I mean, maybe it's a world she's created herself. That's kind of the theory I'm going with right now, but I could be wrong. And there are other people with other solid sounding theories that she's actually being held as a prisoner. So, but anyway, getting back to the thing, really nothing in this show so far would really contradict the notion of that it's just her working within the power set she's already kind of had in the comics before. So, I don't know, but no, her gaining I don't know how she would gain the powers of the Infinity Stones. I mean, she got punched in the face, but I mean, there is nothing that would justify thinking that I can think of that she somehow, and by the way, I think Marvel is now has moved on from the Infinity Stones. I mean, we just spent 20 plus movies kind of talking about the Infinity Stones in their various manifestations. I think the MCU's moved past them. I don't think they want to go backwards that way and make the Infinity Stones a big, huge MacGuffin part of WandaVision. But again, I don't know that. That's just me speculating and guessing, but that's my best guess right now. Interesting that you're thinking outside the box like that though, Aaron. I like it. All right, next up. Chris Hunt writes, what do you guys think about the new Warner Brothers logo? Not really a big deal, but it looks really bland now. I agree. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Okay, so like when we think of Warner Brothers, right? We think of, at least I do, we think of the one on the far left there. Like that's Warner Brothers. But this one right beside me here is apparently the new logo. And I'm like, what? That's ugly. I hate it. Like, I get it. There's a movement design wise of much simpler, cleaner design. That's been a movement for a couple of years, particularly in design, nice, clean design. And that is certainly this, no doubt. But that Warner Brothers logo, that's iconic. And now granted, the logo has gone through changes before, yes, but I mean, it's such a departure. It's such a departure. I'm with you. I don't really like it. Now, maybe I just don't like it because it's not what I'm used to, right? That happens. Maybe the only reason I don't like it is because it's something I'm not used to. Maybe if I get used to it for a bit, I'll start to actually appreciate it. Maybe. But yeah, I am not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of the change. But maybe that's just because we don't like change. That's possible too. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't really like it all that much. To be honest. No, sir. No, I don't. All right. Next up, we've got Who versus Who writes. Love the original Wonder Woman movie. On the sequel. Yeah, I'm there with you on both accounts. I just adore the relationship between Diana and Steve. Speaking of things left unspoken / unaddressed in Wonder Woman 84, I keep thinking, what would Steve have to say about World War II, considering their part in World War I? That's a whole ball of wax I'm not going to go into. Like, I mean, who knows what that would be? But one of the strengths, again, I was disappointed in Wonder Woman 84, mostly because I love the first one so much. I thought they did a really great job with the first movie. Quite disappointed in the second one. Although I don't think the second one is the steaming pile of garbage that some people make it out to be. There are quite redeemable elements of the movie. One of them being truly one of the strong points of the first movie as well, which is that dynamic and that relationship, due in part mostly to Chris Pine's acting, but still, the dynamic between them is really quite good. And when they're just engaging with each other, it's quite watchable. And I enjoyed that. Part of the reason why I think, even though it makes no sense to bring Steve Trevor back for Wonder Woman 3, then I kind of won't be surprised at all if they do indeed bring Steve Trevor back for Wonder Woman 3, because the biggest strength of the first two movies has been the dynamic between the two characters. When the movie doesn't have the two of them on screen together, it kind of struggles, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, that is absolutely one of the strong points of the first and the second one. Unfortunately, a lot of elements of the second one that did not live up to that standard, which is too bad. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, Who versus Who. Next up, Who versus Who also writes, the power of the theatrical experience. I reserved a private screen at the local AMC for $99 this Saturday. I have 3 boys, 11, 8, and 4. Nice. We're seeing The War with Grandpa. This is the Robert De Niro one. It's for the kids. They are thrilled, going nuts about going back to the movies. Dude, listen, I don't know what happened. Oh, I know. They're not allowed to do it in LA, in California. That's why. I remember when they were being allowed to do that in certain areas around where I live. And me, Ann, and a couple of our friends talked about booking a theater, a private AMC theater for a screening for a bunch of us. And we never got around to doing it because I think the rules changed and all of a sudden they weren't allowed to do it. At least nowhere close to where we were living. But I love that idea. Now, normally when I think about doing something like that, it's for, getting a bunch of buddies together to do it. But if you got a couple of kids and you let them invite some of their friends, you're a hero for the day, dude. You are a hero for the day. And that is a great idea. Excellent idea. Thanks for sharing that with us, Who versus Who. All right, next up, Nas writes, have you seen Kevin Feige's Collider interview when he was asked about the Marvel Netflix characters? The Daredevil and Spider-Man thing is most likely just a major rumor. So why doesn't he just come out and say, no, Daredevil will not be in Spider-Man? It's the same reason why he doesn't come out and debunk a lot of the rumors that come out. Like, we have seen so many rumors. Like, again, I go back to this one a lot, but everybody forgets or pretends to forget, like, all the headlines that ran, like when they showed the picture of Thanos and Thanos had the 3-line scar, and a bunch of sites ran with like, confirmation, Wolverine's going to be at, we have inside sources that say Wolverine. Remember, it wasn't from any of the major trades, but a bunch of other outlets. We have inside sources say Wolverine's going to be in there, and they got this scar. See, 3 scars. It's got to be Wolverine's claws, right? It has to be. Anyway, Kevin Feige never came out and debunked that. Every time a new MCU movie is coming out, and listen, ever since the Fox takeover by Disney happened, every single MCU movie that's come out, there has been reports and speculation that this is the one where Storm is going to pop up. Remember, there's a bunch of people, there were some sites that had sources that said that Storm was going to show up in Black Panther. Clearly that didn't happen. But for every MCU movie, there have been whispers and rumors, and some sites claiming they had sources saying that X-Men are going to be first mentioned here. You're going to start getting Fantastic Four popping up in this movie, and it's never turned out to be true. And for none of those things does Kevin Feige come out and say, no, that's not happening. Because if he does, that's all he's going to be spending all of his time always doing. That's all he's going to spend his time doing. And believe it or not, some people would consider it a feather in their cap that Kevin Feige himself addressed a rumor that they made up. I made up this story, and Kevin Feige talked about the story that I made up. There are people and so if Kevin Feige starts addressing every one of these rumors that are always coming out, then that's all he's going to be spending his time doing. And it's going to encourage a lot of people to come up with more rumors, to create more rumors. Because, hey, we got attention paid to us by Kevin Feige. Right? And although you'd think that's a bad thing to get when he's debunking what you're saying, believe me, a lot of people would think that's awesome. I think Kevin Feige is paying attention to us. So, yeah, I think that's why he doesn't do it. And listen, maybe yes, maybe no, but he can't spend his time addressing and justifying the false stuff that gets spread around out there. Otherwise, that's what he'd be doing 24/7, and that's not something he wants to set a precedent for. So I think that's pretty important. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, Nas. Next up, A-Train A writes, HBO Max not having Mandalorian level content. They do have Mandalorian level content. There's not Mandalorian level success. That's different. They have a lot. Listen, HBO has a lot of content that's even better than Mandalorian. Let's be clear about that. HBO has some fantastic stuff. Lovecraft Country was fantastic. Watchmen was fantastic. You can't tell me that wasn't Mandalorian level stuff. Maybe as good, maybe not quite as good, but they were definitely on the same level. They just didn't have the same Mandalorian success. Anyway, HBO Max not having Mandalorian level content is actually a fair point for why Disney Plus is ahead. You could argue in quality they have better shows, but in popularity and viewership, it's no contest. No show for HBO Max beats the fandom that Mando has. Well, I mean, yes, but Mandalorian, you can't just skip over the fact that Mandalorian is a Star Wars show. You can't just skip over that. Now look, Mandalorian's successful because Jon Favreau made a great show. Mandalorian's successful because if it was a terrible show, it would still have some success because it's Star Wars, but it wouldn't have this level of success. But you can't just gloss over it's a Star Wars show. And that has a hell of a lot to do with it. It's not the only thing. The quality of the show is there, but the question becomes, when you consider, this is the striking part. It was a couple of weeks ago now, I guess, we talked on this show, on the John Campea Show, about the fact that Variety had just come out with an article that pointed out that once Game of Thrones ended, that HBO lost 51% of their key viewing demographic and almost 40% of their overall audience overnight once Game of Thrones was done. Once there was no more Game of Thrones, they lost tons of their viewership, which totally put into perspective why they pulled that desperation move of saying 2021, all of our movies are coming to HBO Max. Now that makes a lot more sense because they're bloody desperate. But it's still a little confounding to me because, the whole Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. There's this thought out there that if you just make good, great content, people will just come. The reality is HBO has continued to put out great content. Maybe not most successful show of all time level content like Game of Thrones, but they have put out excellent content. Like I said, if I had to choose today, based on what's available today, and I had to choose between original content from Disney Plus or original content from HBO, I'm taking HBO all day, every day, twice on Sunday. Now, ask me that question again in a year once we start getting some more MCU and some new Star Wars stuff coming. Maybe I'll change my mind then. But right now, listen, HBO puts out great crap, man. They put out great stuff. Like, when they put out something, I just assume it's going to be top shelf. Absolute top level quality. Because that's what they do. And yeah, maybe if they had a license to Star Wars, maybe they could make something as popular as Mandalorian. I don't know. But yeah, it is a little confounding because on the one hand, I believe I like seeing fairness in the universe. And if the universe was fair, HBO would have a lot more viewers because they put out really good. Listen, Lovecraft Country was wonderful. I didn't, after episode 2, I almost tapped out of Lovecraft. I really liked the first episode, but the second episode kind of lost me. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, if this is the direction the show's going, and I'm kind of over it, whatever. But my wife Ann convinced me to watch episode 3, and then I got totally rehooked again, and I loved the rest of the series. Watchmen was fabulous. Kind of a weird ending to Watchmen. I give you that. It was. But the overall experience I had watching Watchmen was amazing. Fantastic. And they just continue to put out really good stuff. So it's a conundrum, man. They really do deserve more viewership than they have. But man, it's hard to fight that mouse. It is hard to compete with that mouse, with the library that mouse has, man. It is difficult. And Disney's playing it well. They're playing it really well. Because again, they went through 2020 with one premium series that they put out. One. For the whole year. Season 1 of Mandalorian, and that was it. The entire rest of the year, they just floated on their library. But they marketed the hell out of it, and they did a pretty good job. And now they're like leagues ahead of HBO Max right now, to the point that I don't know if HBO Max is ever going to be able to catch up. And this new little stunt of theirs of taking all their movies out of theaters and putting them onto HBO Max, taking them off their exclusive theatrical window, putting them on HBO, I don't know that's going to work out for them. Because despite all their pretty words about, wow, Wonder Woman really performed, okay, yeah, but I have been told by people I know at Warner Brothers, but it's obvious to everybody, they were hoping for much bigger numbers from Wonder Woman 84. They were hoping for much bigger numbers. And they did not get them. And I don't know that they're going to get them with Godzilla versus Kong. I don't know. But then again, we are at the very beginning of their experiment. We're just at the very, very beginning of their experiment. Maybe, who knows, maybe this will be the most successful thing ever done. All right, Stubble McShave, thanks for that, A-Train. Stubble McShave writes, when you and Rob watches Statler and Waldorf on the Muppets, they're, of course, the critics and thing. Why do we always come here? I guess we'll never know. It's like a kind of torture to have to watch a show. I love Statler and Waldorf. I mean, I could watch an entire sitcom of those guys. I love some of the greatest characters ever. Anyway, will it be like looking in the mirror? You're essentially doing the same job. I mean, what's the difference between critics and pundits? Well, there is actually a big difference between critics and pundits, right? A critic is more of like specific analysis of individual properties, right? Critics don't talk about what's coming up. Critics don't talk about, where do we see this going in the future? Critics don't, they take a movie and specifically deconstruct and talk about a movie. That's when people ask me, I'm not a film critic. I do some film criticism, sure, but I'm not a film critic. I play guitar. I'm not a guitarist. I play piano. I'm not a pianist. And I'm really more of a pundit, and a pundit is really more like, and I think I might be the first person ever. I think I might have been the first person ever to kind of use the term pundit when it comes to talking about the film industry analysis. It's really more like ESPN or, Fox football panels where they're just like talking about the overall thing of it. And that's kind of the way I see the difference. That's kind of the way I see it. I like talking about the industry, breaking down where it's going, where it's been, the news of the day, all that kind of stuff. That's very, very, very different from what an actual real critic does. The problem is there's too many people today. The term film critic has been, what's the word I'm looking for? Watered down. The term film critic has kind of been reduced a lot lately because just everybody calls themselves a film critic, and most of them aren't actual real film critics. They just call themselves film critics, but whatever. But I've always very proudly worn the label pundit. I like being a pundit, and that's what I do. Anyway, thanks for that, Stubble. Next up, it's like a kind of torture to have to watch a show. Okay, Casey McNatt writes, it's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to get things started on the Muppet Show tonight. I used to love watching this show back in the day, and I actually can't wait to revisit it. My favorite Muppet had to be Fozzie Bear and, of course, Animal. Yeah, there are so many. I mean, I to this day, whenever I see Dr. Bunsen and Beaker, my heart just feels happy. My heart just feels happy seeing that freaking little puppet going, meep, 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 meep. I don't know why. It fills my heart with joy. And Scooter running around making everything happen. Pigs in space. Are you kidding me? And then the Star Wars episode they did with Mark Hamill. Anyway, I remember that show fondly, man. So fondly. And I'm with you, Casey. I honestly cannot wait for this thing to make its triumphant appearance on Disney+. All right. Chris Thacker writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's obviously not with me right now. I love the news about the Muppet Show on Disney+, and it got me thinking about the Muppet Babies cartoon show. Muppet Babies. Yes. Anyway, is the reason it's not on Disney Plus or on DVD because of copyright issues? Love your show so much. You are all I watch. Well, thanks a lot for that, Chris. I honestly don't know. I mean, it's got to be out there somewhere. Muppet Babies. I mean, I would just assume the rights to Muppet Babies belong to, I mean, unless they didn't belong to Henson, maybe when they agreed, some network agreed to make the show. And I honestly can't remember which network Muppet Babies was on, but I don't know. Maybe it's possible that the network that carried it, they acquired the rights to that iteration. That's a great question, but I don't know. I will admit, I was never a big Muppet Babies guy. Don't worry, they were cute. I love great jokes, animal. Anyway, and they had a lot of Star Wars references in the show. Yes, but I was never a big Muppet Babies guy. I was really more about, the old reruns of the original Muppet Show. That's kind of what did it for me. But that's a really good question, Chris. Let's see what happens. I would be interested to know in what's going on with that, because you would think they, whoever has the rights to the Muppets, the rights to the Muppet Babies program would just go along with it. Maybe it doesn't. I'm going to keep an eye out for that. That's a really interesting question, Chris. Thanks for bringing it up. All right, next up. Qui-Gon Gin and Tonic writes, with Matt Damon joining Thor, it now becomes the only MCU to have 3 Oscar winners in acting and an Oscar-winning director. Quite impressive, right? Do you think 2020 inadvertently helped the comic book film industry in terms of potential comic fatigue? Well, I mean, here's the thing. Let's remember, yes, they have a director who is an Academy Award winner, but Taika Waititi got his Academy Award winning for writing. He's not an Academy Award winning director. He's an Academy Award winning writer. Still, he's a filmmaker. He's an Academy Award winner. Matt Damon also did not win his Academy Award for acting. Matt Damon won his Academy Award for the same thing, for acting, for writing. Him and Ben Affleck won the best screenplay for, why am I freezing on the name of their iconic movie with Robin Williams? Why am I freezing on that name with Robin? Hold on a second. Now I got to look it up. I talk about this movie all the time. Why am I suddenly getting a brain freeze on this? If this show was live, I would just ask you guys, hey guys, which was that movie? The movie, of course, was Good Will Hunting. I don't know why I froze on that. Good Will Hunting, which was finally the movie after 3 other nominations that Robin Williams had. 3 other nominations for acting. Good Will Hunting was finally the movie, the 4th time's a charm, that got Robin Williams his Academy Award. Now, like I said, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon won the Academy Award for Best Screenplay. Let's see, it was also nominated for... Minnie Driver was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Minnie Driver. I mean, I used to love Minnie Driver. Loved. Actually, there's a movie. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked here. There is a movie that very few people have watched. It was released in theaters, but very, very few people watched it. That is truly, I love this movie so much. It stars Minnie Driver and David Duchovny from X-Files. It's called Return to Me. It is beautiful and moving and funny and heartbreaking and hilarious all at the same time. Anyway, it won. Good Will Hunting won 2 Academy Awards, one for Robin Williams, one for Matt Damon and Ben Affleck for screenwriting. And the only acting, and Matt Damon did get nominated for an Academy Award for that, for Best Leading Actor. Minnie Driver was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Again, if you get a chance to see Return to Me, let me see if I can bring up the poster for this. I know I'm getting totally sidetracked because we're not here to talk about Return to Me. Hold on. Return to Me. There it is. It's from 2000, so it's 20 years old now. But I love this movie. I love this movie. It was directed by Bonnie Hunt, who's in the movie as well. Had Carol O'Connor, Robert, where did Bonnie Hunt? She is in it. Oh yeah, there's her name. Sorry, I just said Bonnie Hunt's in it. Why isn't her name around there? Anyway, the movie is fabulous. Oh yeah, Jim Belushi was in there too. I forgot. He plays Bonnie Hunt's husband in it. But It's incredible, and it starts so heartbreaking. Basically, it starts with David Duchovny has a wife he's desperately in love with, and they love each other so much. Meanwhile, Minnie Driver is this really wonderful girl who's desperately needs a heart transplant. They don't know how much longer she's going to live without a heart transplant. Anyway, tragedy happens. David Duchovny and his wife get into a car accident. She dies, and he loses his wife. And there's this scene in this movie where David Duchovny comes home for the first time after his wife dies. Oh my God. It's like the best acting I've ever seen David Duchovny do. It's absolutely fantastic. But his wife was an organ donor, ends up going to Minnie Driver. And I think like a year or two later, somehow they meet. Minnie Driver, who has his wife's heart. I know it sounds sappy, but believe me when I tell you, this movie is charming and delightful and beautiful, and I love it, and it's one of the reasons why I love Minnie Driver quite so much. Anyway, this all came about because we were talking about MCU. So remember, Matt Damon's not an Academy Award winning actor. He's an Academy Award winning screenwriter. Taika Waititi is not an Academy Award winning director. He's an Academy Award winning screenwriter. But anyway, it is what it is. Anyway, do you think that 2020 inadvertently helped the comic book film industry in terms of potential comic fatigue? See, here's the thing. I have never believed for a second that there has ever been 1 ounce of actual comic book movie fatigue. I believe individuals can have some of that, but I have never seen one shred of evidence that audience-wide there has been an onset of comic book movie fatigue. There's been no empirical data to suggest that. And I'll tell you, every year for the last 10 years, we see people saying, comic book movie fatigue is going to set in this year. You say, everybody's going to get tired. And then it doesn't. Then the next year, well, now comic book movie fatigue will set in and everything. And then the next year comes and it doesn't. And then and it never stops every single year. But the one thing I do think it helped with, this is really desperately trying to find a silver lining, but out of the crap that was 2020, the one thing that it may have done was given us a breath after the climax again of Endgame. Because Endgame was an ending. And it was the summation of 10 plus years and 20 plus movies. And we had this big climax. And I really said, and I made a video about this saying, I think Marvel's got its work cut out for them to try to now recapture that energy and excitement now that we've just climaxed the way we did. It's going to be hard. If you're trying to find for the movie industry some slim silver lining out of the crap that was 2020, that little bit of a break might have actually ended up being something that the MCU needed. Maybe. I don't know that for sure. I'm not saying that definitively or confidently, but it's possible that could work out in their favor. All right, next up. Cesar Rivera writes, I'm a big fan of continuations that take place years after their original works. Some of my favorite continuations are Cobra Kai, Twin Peaks, The Return, Ash versus the Evil Dead, Tron Legacy, Blade Runner 2049, and Star Wars The Force Awakens. Thoughts? Groovy. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not a Twin Peaks guy, so I can't comment on Twin Peaks. I don't like Cobra Kai, but everybody else does, so that's clearly a big win. Ash versus the Evil Dead, great. Tron Legacy. I wasn't a big fan of Tron Legacy. It wasn't all that bad, but it wasn't all that good. I love Blade Runner 2049. Like, I don't like the first Blade Runner. I love Blade Runner 2049. I clearly love Star Wars The Force Awakens. Yeah, there has definitely in the last couple of years, in the last decade, there has been a lot of movement towards reviving like much older properties. Not just things that came out 4 or 5 years ago, but things that came out 15 to 30 years ago, right? And with varying degrees of success. Cobra Kai is one of the hottest things out there right now. I mean, I don't like it. It doesn't work for me, but that's okay. Tons of people do. It's a big, big hit. My wife loves that damn. She binged the entire 3rd season in like, I don't know, less than a week. And it is a growing trend, and I don't see that trend slowing down anytime soon, Caesar. I think they are constantly now, we keep hearing reports about these older IPs looking to revisit them now with these same characters however many years later, right? We're seeing it happen all the time, and I think we're going to continue to see that trend happen for a while. So anyway, I agree with you, Caesar. Well pointed out. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, where are we at here? MCU heroes kill, so why can't Superman and Batman? We actually talked about this on the show earlier today. Come on, that's like saying Thor flies, so why can't Batman fly? I think the reason is because DC incorporates heroes not killing and the consequences of that in their stories, Injustice, Killing Joke, etc. Okay, so you're actually referencing the person who did. So here's the background on this. Somebody earlier today wrote in and said, listen, I don't get it. Why are people giving DC such a hard time about the fact that Superman killed Zod, which is ridiculous. Of course he killed Zod. He had to kill Zod. There was no other option anyway. Or that Ben Affleck's Batman kills some people. And why does these DC heroes get all this crap for that when like the Marvel heroes kill people all the time? Like all the time. They used to do a body count run on the MCU of how many like people how many bad guys the heroes kill. Anyway. So how come these DC characters get all this crap when they kill somebody, but everybody in Marvel just gets a free pass? Now, what I said earlier today, and it sounds anonymous like you're agreeing with what I was saying, was that there are iterations, prominent iterations of Superman and Batman, where in the comics they explicitly say, we have a rule that we will not kill. We will not kill. To the point that even in Justice Gods Among Us, which the comic book version of that, there of course is the very popular video game, but the comic book version of Injustice Gods Among Us, which is to me like the best purely written comic run I've read in a long time. The writing of that series is incredible. But the whole basic premise of it is, what happens when Superman crosses that line? Superman kills the Joker because the Joker is responsible for killing Lois Lane and Superman's unborn child. It's a long story, but it's a fantastic story. Anyway, so having had enough, Batman captures the Joker and takes him to jail. Superman's like, nah. Superman breaks into the prison where they're holding Joker, and Superman rips out the Joker's heart, kills him. And that is the beginning of the fall of Superman. Now, you can make an argument that really the beginning of the fall of Superman was the incredible loss he suffered of the death of Lois Lane and his unborn child. By the way, it's worth noting here. The way Lois and Superman's unborn child died is that the Joker made Superman hallucinate that Lois was Doomsday. So when Superman saw Lois, he thought he was seeing Doomsday. So he grabbed what he thought was Doomsday and dragged Doomsday out into outer space and killed Doomsday out there. Then he realized he killed Lois Lane. Superman killed Lois Lane and his unborn child. Not only that, but the Joker had kidnapped Lois Lane and attached a thing to her heart that when her heart stopped beating, a nuclear explosion went off in Metropolis. So, not only did Superman just lose, by his own hands, unknowingly, he murdered the love of his life and his unborn child, because he knew she was pregnant, and he was all excited about it. He murdered them with his own hands, but the consequence of him murdering them was that a nuclear device went off in Metropolis and devastated the city. So, I mean, you could really say that is what broke Superman. You can very easily make the argument that would break anybody, but anyway, that drove Superman to saying, F Joker, I'm going to kill him. And of course he goes and kills Joker. And then he's like, well, now that he's totally broken and he's killed Joker, maybe I should do more of this. And he turns into a dictator and taking over the world and basically becoming a villain and turning a lot of the Justice League heroes into villains as well. Again, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So I could talk about it all day, but we don't have time for me to talk about it all day. Anyway, but yes, Anonymous, you're right. It's really two different situations, because while there are precedents in the comics and iterations of Batman and Superman both in the comics that they have killed, even though every movie iteration of Batman, including the Tim Burton films, including the Christopher Nolan films, where Batman has killed in those movies before, even though all of that, a lot of people hold on to the iteration of Batman that he just has this rule he doesn't kill. And so that's why when they see the Ben Affleck Batman killing people, they get a little bit defensive about that, because that there is that precedent in the comic books, even though there's also precedent of him absolutely killing, but that's the one that they know. Whereas, there's nothing in Thor with Thor going, I thus thinketh that I shalleth never killeth again. Like that's never been a part of Thor. So people don't get upset at that, obviously, when he ends up killing some fool, or killing a bunch of people, or killing a bunch of enemies, whatever, in the movies, because he's never had that rule. That's never been a part of Thor that I can recall, at any rate. Whereas in the DC comics, there have been times when those have been very important rules to the characters, and so some of the audience gets their back up a little bit about that. I get it. I totally get it. But that's why they give the DC characters a bit of a hard time. I don't. I think it's perfectly acceptable what they've done in the movies, but that's just me. And don't give a hard time for the Marvel characters because of the precedent that had been set. Anyway, there's that. All right, next up. Just got a couple of minutes left here, guys. Stubble McShave writes, if there could be a crossover between studios with superhero franchises, I wouldn't pick Superman to appear in a Marvel franchise. I would have Catwoman in a Spider-Man movie. That's actually not bad. As a neutral agent of chaos, tempting Peter. I think the Graduate style Superman, the Graduate, put a little Dustin Hoffman in there. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I agree. Pulling Superman in that's kind of point. It's Superman. I mean, there's really no point. But yeah, a character like a Catwoman, a character like a Batman, a Hawkman would be very, really when you think about Asgard and all that kind of stuff, Hawkman with his origins, that could be an interesting one too. But I like the one you've come up with, Stubble. Yeah, Catwoman and Spider-Man. I mean, it would kind of feel like Catwoman might be a little bit of a fill-in for a Silver Sable or something like that. But yeah, Catwoman and Spider-Man. I'd be down for that. I mean, it'll never happen, but I would be completely down for that. All right, next up. A-Train A writes, I disagree with Rob that heroes not killing isn't realistic. An alien, immortal Amazon warrior, Atlantean king, and a man who can run so fast he can time travel, but them killing is what makes it more real. Heroes killing is a mechanism, not what makes it real. Well, I think you're missing... Look, I don't want to speak for Robert, but I think you're missing the point he was making. When you're somebody that wields that kind of power... This is an argument I have with people all the time, especially specifically when it comes to the Batman character, right? The things Batman does to people in the comic books would kill them. It's just that simple. They just say in the comic books that it didn't kill them. I always go back to this one issue that I read where Batman kind of lures a couple of thugs into this abandoned house, right? And they're up on the second floor and they know Batman's in there somewhere. But Batman's hiding in the shadows in the rafters, right? So what happens is Batman falls out of the rafters, comes flying down out of the rafters, lands with his knees in the chest of the thug that goes so hard into the ground, they break through the floor and go falling down to the first floor from the second floor. And Batman lands knees first in the guy's chest. And then you see this thought bubble. You guys have heard me mention this before. You see the thought bubble of Batman running a quick, diagnosis of him. He's thinking, punctured lung, 7 broken ribs. He'll be in traction for 3 months, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that guy would be dead. That guy would be dead. It's just that simple. That guy would be dead. His internal organs would have been crushed. He's dead. But they just say Batman does all these things to these characters in the comics all the time. That's like, okay, that would have killed that guy and that would have killed that guy, but they just say they didn't die. But Batman does things that would kill people. And I think again, I don't want to speak for Robert, but I think the point he was trying to make is when you look at the things they do, I'm sorry, when Superman punches a bad guy, it's most likely he's going to die. When these things happen, these people will probably die. And I think that's what he was referring to about it's just, listen, these people with those types of powers doing the things to these enemies that they do on a regular basis, that is going to result in a lot of deaths. It's just going to result in a lot of deaths. So I kind of think that's what Rob was talking about. And because I agree with what you're saying, absolutely. It's just that I don't think that's what Rob was meaning. But I don't know. Maybe that is what Rob was meaning. That's just not how I took him at meaning. Anyway, thanks for running that in, A-Train. All right. Next one and final one of the day, guys. The Sock writes, say I wish to have every superpower in existence with no drawbacks. Would that put me into a paradox situation with Dreamstone as the requirement conflicts with my wish? Or does it grant my wish, and now since I'm basically God, I can block it? Let me see this again. Let's say I wish to have every superpower in existence with no drawbacks. Would that put me into a paradox situation with the Dreamstone? Oh, I see what you're saying. As the requirement conflicts with my wish, or does it grant my wish, and now, since I'm basically God, I can block it? Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Talking about the Dreamstone for Wonder Woman 84. Of course, the premise in Wonder Woman 84 is that the Dreamstone can grant you your wish, but it extracts a price, right? It extracts a price. If I was the Dreamstone, and you say, I want my wish is to have every superpower with no drawbacks. No problem. Every superpower you now have has no drawbacks to it. However, it can still extract a price, right? Look at the price it extracted from Maxwell Lord. It was extracting his health. It was taking his health. That had nothing to do with his wish. It will take something from you. It will take something from you. So if you wish for every superpower and there to be no drawbacks to your superpower, fine. The Dreamstone won't take anything from you that is directly connected to the new powers you have. But it'll find something, and it'll take that something from you. Maybe it'll be the people you love. Maybe it'll be something else, some other way. Maybe it'll be this, maybe it'll be that. I don't know. But it will find a way to take its price from you. There won't be any getting around that. But yeah, that's my thought and theory of a completely make-believe thing in a completely make-believe world. That's my take on it. It's a good question, though, Sock. All right, listen up. For everybody else, from Scorpion, Never Lose, Your Nerd, Jay Thomas, what I'm going to do is later today, because you guys are watching this on Thursday. I'm recording this late Wednesday night, but you guys are watching this on Thursday. A little bit later on today, on Thursday, I will record another companion video, and we will start getting caught up, and we'll get all the way caught up here pretty soon here. We're getting pretty close to being all the way caught up, and I will get around to those. Guys, in the meantime, if you want to see a comment or question that you brought up here, or that you would like to bring up and see appear here either on the John Campea Show or on one of the companion videos, simply use the tip link that's in the description of this video. You can just click on it there, or you can enter it in manually simply at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on one of the shows if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here involved with making all the videos on the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for your support. Okay, guys, that'll do it for this installment of the John Campea Show, pre-recorded as it is. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.